The chemo was still burning in my veins when I saw my husband's wedding invitation to another woman. I was sitting at my kitchen table in my robe, too nauseous to stand up straight, and there it was. His name, her name, a date, a vineyard. 14 confirmed guests. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pick up my tea mug and put it through the window. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For a second I almost broke. Almost. But I didn't. I sat completely still, read it 3 times, and felt something shift inside me. Something that had been soft and sick and exhausted for 8 months going suddenly, quietly hard. My name is Nora Callahan. I'm 41 years old. I have stage 3 breast cancer. And the man who swore to stand by me through sickness and health had been planning a wedding behind my back for nearly a year. He thought being sick made me helpless. He thought the chemo had taken everything from me. He forgot one thing. Before I was ever his wife, I was a lawyer. Before I tell you what I did next, I need your help reaching 1,000 subscribers. If you love stories about betrayal, shocking secrets, and emotional justice, hit that subscribe button. And I'm curious, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Are you cozied up at home, commuting, working out? I love knowing where my stories find you. 8 months ago, I lost my hair. I lost 20 pounds. There were nights I couldn't get off the bathroom floor, and mornings where getting dressed felt like climbing a mountain. And through every single one of those moments, I told myself, Marcus was just struggling. That watching your wife battle cancer does something to a person. That the distance I felt from him was grief, not guilt. I was wrong. So completely, painfully wrong. Looking back, I can see every sign I refused to read. The phone password that changed overnight, the business trips that landed perfectly on my worst treatment weeks. The way he stopped holding my hand at the oncologist's office after the first month, like my illness had become something he was tired of being associated with. Once when I asked him to come to a scan with me, he actually sighed. Looked up from his phone and sighed. Then said, Nora, I can't keep rearranging my whole life around every appointment. I didn't say anything. I went alone. I sat in that waiting room alone and told myself he was under pressure. What he was actually under was another woman. And the only reason I found out at all was a 1-letter typo in an email address. A booking confirmation from a vineyard meant for his brother, opened by me on a Tuesday morning while I was too sick to do much else. 1 email. 8 months of confusion suddenly made complete, devastating sense. I didn't fall apart. I wanted to. Part of me wanted to sit on that kitchen floor and cry until there was nothing left. But another part of me, the part that passed the bar on the first try, the part that spent 15 years as a corporate attorney, the part Marcus had clearly forgotten existed, that part stood up and walked to the filing cabinet in my home office. The one he walked past 1,000 times and never once opened. He should have opened it. Because what was inside was going to cost him everything. Be honest, if you found out your partner was secretly getting married while you were sick, would you confront them immediately? Or stay quiet and plan your revenge? The last good year of my life, I had no idea it was ending. I was 39. We had the house on Claremont Drive, tall windows, morning light through the kitchen, a garden I kept properly because no one else would. From the outside, it looked like a great life. Beautiful home, successful husband, a wife who held everything together without making it look like work. That was me. I held everything together. Marcus's firm had exploded 4 years earlier, and somewhere inside that growth, my career had quietly become the thing that gave way. Not one big conversation, 50 small ones. His schedule was more demanding. His clients needed entertaining. His reputation was the one building. The logic was always clean. The conclusion was always the same. I had practiced corporate law for 15 years. I filed my inactive status with the bar and told myself it was a pause, not an ending. He never asked what it cost me. Not once. The dinner parties were the clearest picture of what we'd become. 2 days of cooking, the table arranged, the wine chosen, the names of his colleagues' children memorized so Marcus could mention them casually and seem warm. Then he'd walk in, open the first bottle, make everyone laugh, and people would leave saying what a wonderful couple we were. He collected the praise. I had done everything that made it possible. I didn't resent him. I loved him. I had built my whole life around him. and I called it a choice. But there were moments, late nights after he'd fallen asleep, where I'd lie there and feel the outline of someone I used to be. Sharp, certain, completely her own. I always pushed it down. I should have listened, because that version of me, the one I'd packed away and told to wait, was the only reason I'd survive what Marcus was already quietly building behind my back. I almost canceled the appointment. The scan had flagged something small. Probably nothing, the radiologist said. I had moved the follow-up twice and kept the third date only because I'd run out of honest excuses. Dr. Patel didn't soften it. Stage 3. She said it directly, and I remember the gray sky through the window behind her desk. The fact that I'd worn uncomfortable shoes for a day that was going to be this long. She kept talking. Treatment plan, timeline, next steps, and I kept writing in my notebook. My handwriting was steady. I noticed that and held on to it like something I needed to keep. I called Marcus from the parking garage. Voicemail. The partner meeting. I remembered it then. I didn't leave a message. I sat in the car on level 3 with the phone in my lap and the low ceiling above me, and I gave myself 10 minutes. 10 minutes to feel the entire weight of it. Then I would build it into something I could carry. I drove home. I made dinner. Marcus came in at 7 with his tie loosened, still mentally at the office, and didn't notice anything different in my face. I told him over pasta. He put his fork down. He reached across the table and held both my hands and said, "We'll fight this together. I'm not going anywhere." For a second, just one, I almost cried. I almost let all of it out right there at the dinner table. I didn't. I squeezed his hands and said I knew. I held on to those words for 8 months. I'm almost embarrassed by how hard I held on. The first chemo session, Marcus drives me. He sits in the waiting room the full 2 hours. When I come out, he hugs me and says he's proud of me. I replay that on the hard nights. I use it like evidence. By the 3rd session, he stops coming. Work, he says, a deadline that moved. I say it's fine, and I mean it mostly, and I learn the nurses' names and which chair has the best light, and I make it manageable the way I make everything manageable. But then the things start, and once I start noticing, I can't stop. November, the phone password changes. 6 years, the same 4 digits, our anniversary. One morning I pick it up to check the time, and the code doesn't work. He is in the shower. I stand there for a moment, hand still on the phone, heart doing something I don't want to name. I set it down exactly where it was. I say nothing. It's nothing, I tell myself. December, I almost catch him. I come downstairs earlier than usual, 3 a.m, couldn't sleep, and Marcus is in the kitchen with his phone, leaning against the counter, typing quickly. He doesn't hear me on the stairs. I stop on the 3rd step and watch him for a few seconds. The concentration on his face, the private smile at something on that screen, and something drops in my stomach like a stone. He looks up. His expression changes in under a second. Smooth, easy, concerned. "Hey, can't sleep? How are you feeling?" He pockets the phone before I reach the bottom step. I almost asked. The question was right there. "Who are you talking to at 3 a.m? I could feel it sitting in my mouth. I said I was fine. I got a glass of water. I went back upstairs. I lay in the dark for an hour telling myself I was paranoid. That illness does this, makes you suspicious, makes you see betrayal in ordinary things. That I should be ashamed of myself for doubting him while he was trying so hard. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. And that is the part I will never fully forgive myself for dismissing. January, he stops reaching for my hand at the oncologist's office. The small cruelties pile up now. The sigh when I ask him to come to a scan. The way he answers questions about my treatment in a flat, efficient tone, like he's reporting on a project at work. The Tuesday night he comes home, and I've had a terrible day. I'm on the bathroom floor when he gets in, and he stands in the doorway of the bedroom afterward and says, "You really need to try to push through these days, Nora. Lying in bed makes it worse." I stare at the ceiling and say nothing. That night I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Not because of the cancer, because of him. And I still didn't let myself know what I already knew. I passed the bar exam on a Thursday in July and celebrated alone in my apartment with cheap wine because I didn't yet know anyone in the city worth calling. I didn't mind. I had built that moment entirely by myself, and the feeling of it, quiet, solid, completely mine, was better than any party would have been. By 30, I had become someone real. Senior associate at Hendricks & Carr, financial litigation, asset protection, contract disputes, work that required holding 20 moving pieces in your head at once and knowing at any moment exactly where each one was. I was good at it beyond just competence. Sharp in rooms full of sharp people. I wore good shoes to court, and I did not apologize for the space I occupied. Then I met Marcus. Charming, smart. He looked at me across a fundraiser dinner like I was the most interesting person in the room and told me later it was my confidence that caught him first. I believed it completely. I had no reason not to. We married when I was 34. For a while, everything stayed level. Two people building separate things, choosing every day to build them side by side. Then his firm expanded. And the math, as Marcus explained it, was simple. His salary had tripled. Mine had plateaued. Someone needed to manage the details. I was more organized. It made sense. It always made sense when he framed it. What I understand now, and didn't then, is that the conversation was never really a conversation. It was a conclusion he had already reached, presented to me as logic, so I would arrive there too and feel like I'd chosen it. I had spent 15 years identifying exactly that technique in contracts and negotiations. I somehow missed it in my own kitchen. I filed the paperwork to go inactive, packed 15 years of professional habit into a cabinet and called it a pause. There was a woman I was at 30 who would never have accepted that framing, who would have said, "Ask me. Actually, ask me what I want." I had set her aside so completely I'd almost forgotten she existed. Almost. She was still in that filing cabinet, patient, precise, and absolutely furious on my behalf. It's a Tuesday in February, and I'm still in my robe at 10 in the morning. Yesterday's session was brutal. The nausea is sitting in my chest like a stone, and the world has that slightly unreal quality it gets in the worst treatment weeks. Everything happening just slightly too slowly, colors slightly too flat. I make tea, I'm not sure I can drink, open my laptop and tell myself that rescheduling a follow-up appointment counts as a productive morning. The inbox loads. I click through 3 emails and stop on the 4th. Greystone Vineyard. Guest confirmation. Reeves-Callahan ceremony, March 14th. I read it once. My hands go still on the keyboard. I read it again slowly, the way I used to read a contract when something felt off, looking for the detail that changes the meaning of everything. There is no detail that changes anything. The meaning is plain. Marcus Callahan and Diane Reeves. 3 in the afternoon, dinner reception to follow. 14 confirmed guests. For a moment, just one, I almost broke. The heat that moved through my chest was something I hadn't felt in months, and it was nothing like nausea. It was sharp and bright and furious, and underneath it something else entirely. Grief. Real, sudden, winding grief for 14 years and the hand he used to reach for and the man I thought I married. I let myself have 30 seconds of it. I counted. Then I placed the name. 8 months ago, Marcus at his desk, an email minimized so fast when I walked in that I felt the movement before I saw it. "Just a client," he said, without me asking. "Easy. Practiced." I nodded and kept walking like a fool. I looked at the date in the corner of my screen. March 14th. 17 days away. The floor didn't fall out. Something colder happened. Every disconnected piece of the last 8 months connecting at once, silently, completely. The password. The trips. The sigh at the scan, the hand he stopped reaching for. You need to push through these days, Nora. Not a man struggling with his wife's illness. A man managing his exit. I closed the laptop, sat still for exactly 1 more minute, felt the full weight of all of it, and then I set it down and stood up. The filing cabinet was down the hall. Marcus had walked past it 1,000 times without curiosity. He really, genuinely should have been curious. I don't confront him that night. Marcus comes home at 6:30, same as always. Hangs up his coat. Asks how I'm feeling. I say better than yesterday. He heats the soup I left on the stove, talks about a difficult contractor, and I listen and respond in the right places, and nothing in my face moves. 15 years of reading people across negotiating tables. That skill runs in both directions. But I want to be honest, it is the hardest dinner I have ever sat through. There's a moment. He's pouring himself a glass of water, back turned, completely relaxed, where I almost say it. The words are right there. I saw the invitation. 4 words. I can feel them pressing against the inside of my teeth. My hand tightens around my fork, and for one long second, I am genuinely not sure which direction this goes. I breathe. I let it pass. I pick up my fork. Confronting him tonight would feel good for about 30 seconds. What I am building will feel good for the rest of my life. I wait until he's asleep. Then I go to the home office. The filing cabinet is gray, 2-drawer, the one that moved with me from my apartment the year we married. Marcus assumed it held utility records. He was not wrong. He simply didn't know what else was there. I pull the bottom drawer and work from the back. The prenuptial addendum, drafted myself in one evening 7 years ago, signed by Marcus on a quiet Sunday without much argument, not thought about since. Clean, precise, notarized. It protects every asset I held before the marriage and sets a clear division formula for everything acquired jointly. His signature is firm. The stamp is perfect. Behind it, the asset trust. Pre-wedding, still active, entirely mine. At the very back, a small card in my own handwriting, 12 digits. The cloud archive, 6 years of joint account statements. Every financial record I ever scanned, because something in me said, keep this. I open the archive. Start going through the joint statements. 20 minutes in, my hands go completely still on the keyboard. Transfers. 11 months ago, small. Then growing. An external account I don't recognize, consistent. Deliberate. I cross-reference the account number against a billing address in an older statement. It takes 40 minutes. Diane Reeves. Her account. $58,000 of our money for nearly a year. While I was sick, I sit back in the chair. I press both hands flat on the desk because something in me needs to feel something solid right now. My chest is doing something complicated. Fury and grief running into each other, neither one winning. He was paying for her ring with our money. He was booking her vineyard with our money. He was building his next life with our money while I was losing my hair in a hospital recliner. I sit with that until it turns into something useful. Then I open my notebook and write down the name of a forensic accountant I used on a case 12 years ago. 17 days. He had a year's head start. It wasn't going to be enough. I leave the house at noon. The coat is charcoal gray, wool, sharp lapels. Bought the year I made senior associate for the days that required walking in, already looking like you'd won. 6 years in the back of the closet. It still fits perfectly, and I stand in front of the mirror for a moment just to confirm that. I'm bald from the treatment. I don't wear a scarf or a hat. I look exactly like what I am, a woman who has been through something serious and is still standing, and I decide that is not a thing to minimize. It is the entire point. My hands are shaking slightly as I pick up the envelope from the kitchen table. Not from fear, from the particular feeling of something you've been building for 17 days, finally arriving at the moment of use. I breathe. The shaking stops. 2 hours of quiet highway. No music. Everything that needed thinking has been thought. The work was done before I ever put on this coat. What's left now is just the doing. The envelope sits on the passenger seat. Inside, the prenuptial addendum, a 1-page bigamy statute summary, relevant section highlighted in yellow, and a single handwritten line, "See you in court." Patricia had offered something more formal. I told her the handwriting was intentional. I wanted him to recognize it the moment he looked down, to know, in 1 second, exactly who had come and exactly how prepared she was. I pull into Greystone Vineyard at 2:10, car park full, guests inside. The ceremony is running, which means I timed it right. I check the envelope one final time. I get out of the car. I walk across the gravel, and I do not hurry. The stone hall has tall wooden doors standing slightly open. I can hear the officiant inside. Slow, careful, the voice people use for words that are supposed to last a lifetime. I push the doors open and step in. The back row sees me first. A woman grabs her husband's arm so hard he winces. A man in a gray suit turns and does a visible double take. The ripple moves forward through the rows, heads turning, shoulders stiffening. One sharp whispered, "Oh my God," carrying clearly over the music that has just stopped. The officiant stops mid-sentence and stares. Then Marcus turns around. He looks at me for 1 full second, bald, standing in the coat I wore to closing arguments, envelope under my arm, completely still, and I watched 3 things cross his face in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, And then something I have not seen from him in a very long time. Genuine, unguarded panic. The woman in white makes a sound that is not quite a word. Her bouquet drops slightly in her hands. A guest near the middle stands up, then seems to realize he has no idea what to do standing and just stays there anyway. Someone near the back actually drops a glass. The sharp crack of it hitting stone echoes through the entire hall. A woman near the front bursts into loud, scandalized whispers with the woman beside her. Marcus's mouth opens. Closes. For the first time in 2 years, he does not look like a man who has everything managed. I walk to the end of the nearest aisle. I hold out the envelope. His hand takes it. Pure reflex. His arm extends before his brain catches up. He looks down at my handwriting on the front and something in his face collapses completely. I turn around and walk back toward the doors. Behind me, I hear him say my name. Cracked, furious, a sound I have never heard from him before. And then her voice, high and frightened. And then the room erupting all at once into the kind of noise that happens when a carefully built lie meets reality in front of 14 witnesses. I keep walking. My hands are steady now, completely steady. The chaos is not my job. Mine was done the moment he took that envelope. Let him explain it. I would genuinely love to see him try. I'm back in the city by 5. I stop at the pharmacy, pick up my medication, make tea at the kitchen table, and sit in the same chair where I found the email 17 days ago. The house is quiet. Marcus hasn't called yet. The shock is probably still working its way through his system. I give it until evening. He calls at 8:30. I watch the phone light up and feel something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction, exactly. More like the feeling after a very long case finally closes. I let it ring. 9:40. Each time the same calm detachment. Every conversation we will ever have from this point forward will happen through lawyers, and there is a profound relief in that clarity. Monday morning, I call Patricia Wenz. We worked together at Hendricks & Carr for 4 years before she made partner and I left. She doesn't waste energy on outrage. She assesses, plans, moves. The quality I've always respected most. I haven't called her professionally in 6 years. She picks up on the second ring, and when I finish explaining, there is one short pause before. Bring everything. Tomorrow morning. I bring everything. The prenuptial addendum. The asset trust. 6 years of statements organized by year with key entries flagged in red. My personal timeline. Every date, every amount, every pattern. Built during those 17 nights when sleep was impossible anyway. The transfer records paper clipped separately because I want Patricia to hit them cleanly. She reads without speaking. When she reaches the transfer records, she looks up. He used our joint money to pay for her ring, I say. And the venue deposit. 11 months of our savings. A beat. Then, Nora, this isn't just a divorce case, this is criminal fraud. I know. The bigamy charge is filed within the week. Gerald Foss, forensic accountant Patricia's referral, maps the full transfer trail in 48 hours, $58,000, 11 months. But that's not the part that stays with me. The part that stays is this. The transfers to Diane's account began 6 weeks before my diagnosis, before I knew I was sick, before the word cancer had entered our house even once. Gerald sets the report on the desk between us and gives me a moment to read it. My hands are not shaking when I turn the pages. But there is a second, just one, where I feel the full size of it. Not the money, the timeline. He was already choosing her before he knew how bad my illness was going to be, which means it was never about the cancer making things too hard. I was just in the way. I look at the window for a long moment. I breathe through it. Then I put the report back in the folder. What's the next step? I ask. Patricia almost smiles. He had built his plan over an entire year. I had 17 days. It turned out 17 days was more than enough. The verdict comes down on a Thursday, and I'm not in the courtroom. I had known for 2 weeks the date would land on the same morning as my final chemotherapy session. An appointment that had moved twice already and would not move again. I told Patricia. She said she had everything, and I should go. For once, I didn't argue about what I could or couldn't handle. The work was done. What happened in that courtroom was just the formal arrival of something I had already built. At 9 a.m, while Patricia stood before a judge with 6 months of clean documentation, I sat in the familiar hospital recliner and let Carol find the vein on the first try. For a second, settling into that chair, I almost cried. Not from grief, something older than that. Exhaustion, maybe. The particular weight of a fight that's finally almost over. I breathe through it. I open my eyes, I'm fine. Patricia's text comes at 11:43. Full ruling. I read it twice. Set the phone face down on my leg and look at the window for a long, quiet moment. Full asset division per the prenuptial addendum. The document Marcus signed on a quiet Sunday 7 years ago and never thought about again. The second marriage declared legally void, treated not with sentiment but with the clean precision of the law. Criminal investigation opened for the asset transfers. Diane named in civil proceedings. Her knowledge documented and dated. 8 months minimum. Patricia calls 10 minutes later with the rest. Marcus's firm had begun dissolving his partnership before the week was out. His two partners decided within 48 hours of the bigamy charge becoming public. The exposure was something they couldn't carry. By Friday, his name would be gone from the website. The firm he had spent 10 years building, the one I had organized my entire life around, the one he had used our money to protect while quietly funding an exit, gone. I sit with that. I let myself feel the full size of it, not triumph, not gloating, something quieter. The particular feeling of things finally being exactly what they are. At 12:30, Carol removes the IV line, steps out, and comes back holding a small silver bell. Wooden handle, metal dome. She holds it out with both hands like it's something worth treating carefully. I stand up. My legs are steady. The nausea is still there, familiar now, like a companion I've learned to move around. I stand in the middle of that pale, warm room, and I feel, for just a moment, every version of myself that got me here. The woman in the parking garage who didn't fall apart. The woman at the kitchen table who read that email and wiped cold instead of broken. The woman in the charcoal coat who walked across the gravel without hurrying. The woman at 30 who passed the bar alone and celebrated with cheap wine because she didn't need an audience to know what she'd earned. She waited. She was worth every single year of waiting. I raised the bell. My hands are not shaking. They have not been shaking since I walked out of that vineyard. I rang it. The sound went out through the room and down the hallway, and I stood inside it, not crying, not performing, not checking whether anyone was watching or whether I was doing it right. I had spent 2 years being made smaller. I had spent 8 months being sick in a way that was supposed to erase me quietly on someone else's timeline in service of someone else's next chapter. I stood in that ringing, and I took up every inch of space I was owed. That was enough. After all of it, the parking garage, the filing cabinet, the gravel, the envelope, the courtroom I wasn't in when justice landed. That was more than enough. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more shocking family betrayal and revenge stories like this one, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Tell me, did she go too far or not far enough? Be honest, was this justice or revenge? Tell me in the comments. I read every one.